right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. It's the state of the nation. We're talking about us politics and everything in between there. We've taken a pulse of how the state is so far. Talked a bit about the economy, talked a bit about the IBC. Now let's talk about something the president talked about. It's a debt relief question. He talked about this at the United Nations General Assembly, and this is what the president had to say.
On behalf of Kenya, therefore, I join other leaders in calling upon the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and other multilateral lenders to extend pandemic-related debt relief to the worst-hit countries, especially those affected by the devastating combination of conflict, climate change, and COVID-19. Furthermore, I urge the G20 to extend and expand the scope of the common framework to suspend or reschedule debt repayments by middle-income countries during the pandemic.
Honorable Mudenyo, does the president have a point there? We need suspension or rescheduling of the debt and an extension of the pandemic-related debt relief.
First of all, it has got its own implications. Internationally, if you go into a debt restructuring, your credit rating is downgraded. That means your ability to borrow to even attend to emergencies or good infrastructure project is impaired. But more importantly, many of these debts we are talking about were not actually incurred during the pandemic. They are historical debts, and which I must say without any fear of doubt that the current president was part of the regime that gobbled up all these debts. It is ironical at this particular time to come and now start calling for debt relief. Indeed, if you get data from central bank and the rest, yes, our debt situation is bad, bad. But from the various parameters used, the governor of central bank thinks we are not badly off. We can still manage to get our things going. What else in this country is not actually the debt, it's the inability to collect all the revenue that is due to us. And if you can hear what the new government is talking about, it does not build any hope. Indeed, if you hear the deputy president saying, let the police sit in their houses, let DCI sit in their houses, not follow up any corruption cases, we are going to have a more dire strait as we go along. But indeed, if there are any merits, Kenya is already categorized as a middle-income country. Kenya is not in war. Kenya is generally a stable country. Probably there might not be much merit in the request by the president for debt waiver, for debt relief, for debt restructuring. What we need to know and what we need to do, and I totally agree with some sectors, that we need to audit our debt portfolio to ascertain, did we use that money for the intended purposes? And if we use that money for the intended purposes, when is the payback period? And if when the payback period is due, are we likely to see value for that money? Otherwise, all over the world, debt is cheaper than equity.
Yeah.
Debt on its own is not wrong. What is wrong is what you do with the debt.
Yeah.
They borrowed Euro bond, they ate all the money. They went and inflated SGR, they ate all the money. We got money to do a road dam, we ate all the money. So eating is our DNA. Even if we did a debt relief, we'll only give them more room to look for more money to stash their pockets and leave the gullible Kenyans suffering as usual.
Yeah, Gerald Gay.
One thing you need to appreciate, Trevor, is that what the president was speaking on behalf of the world and Africa.
Yes.
He was not necessarily speaking about Kenya alone. So we need to separate the issues. What he was speaking was that there are many countries that are on the red because of the debt that are borrowed from other countries, IMF, International Monetary Fund, among others. And you add, when we took over the government, you add even the Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, pointed out that we are inheriting a dilapidated economy. I made similar assertions. The Central Bank of Kenya governor, when he appeared before National Assembly parliamentary meeting at Safari Park, made similar assertions. So it is a reality that we have a debt crisis. And even National Assembly, during Kibaki and during the former retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, and unfortunately my brother was not in Parliament, I and Kimani Wamatangi and Atandi, there was a time the government, President Uhuru's government under the handshake with Raila Odinga was borrowing without the approval of Parliament. And in fact, in the audit, it has been, and I think Atandi is doing poorly by not inducting properly my brother here, so that he's aware.
For your information, he's second-term MP. So,
unless, you know, the first time maybe because the handshake was there, he didn't mention these things. But what is important is that there is a time the government was borrowing. And my brothers here were National Assembly. I would have expected Oundo to mention that there was money that was being borrowed under President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga handshake government, but it was not approved by the National Assembly. So that we assist. The issue of debt is a reality. We can't run away from it. The reason even we are having even IMF proposals, the issue of I agree with Undo, the assessment of what is happening with the public debt. But the bottom line is that the president was just outlining what is serious. Most countries, including Kenya, that were affected by COVID hit. But, you know, unfortunately, the same people who are accusing government now, including my brother here, with all of respect, were some of the suspects of Kemsa East that ate even the money that was supposed to use to fight COVID. And some of their senior members of coalition were mentioned, and they were in the same government, but they didn't protest that. So just I want to ask them that relax, allow us to fix this country. Give us some time to fix this country. We see how we are going to do about the debt relief, how to fix the debt crisis in the country, so that, you know, now the economy will start improving. The high cost of living, the issue of unemployment, the issue of where counties do not receive enough funds, the issue where KRA is not getting enough taxation and what have you. All these issues, when it comes together, it points out, Trevor, on the aspect that we are not doing very well. Finally, on the issue that was being raised is that many countries, and you know, this is a platform where the nations come and discuss the challenges that face the world. So you couldn't have expected the President, William Ruto, not to mention what is happening even here in Kenya and across Africa and across the world. We don't want to go like other countries where they have lost, like Sri Lanka. Many people want to equate. They have lost even the use of strategic issues and ports. Yeah. Even we don't want to, and you remember President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga have never made public what they signed with the collateral in terms of JKI and Mombasa. And in fact, I expected my gentleman from Azimio to thank the government for reverting port operations to Mombasa, where now port operations are in Mombasa, courtesy of this government. They were there by the, and let me say this as I conclude. Trevor, the same two gentlemen who are in Azimio and their leader Raila Odinga, they were in government, on handshake government with Uhuru Kenyatta. They never protested the moving of port operations to Naivasha. But when now the government starts to work, instead they should just be very good people, honest people, good Christians, and give credit where it is due. Anasema mugala muue na haki mpe.
Okay.
So we must agree there is a challenge of debt crisis, but how do we address it from here? And I think Kenyans must come together so that we can move out of the economic challenges that we are facing to a prosperous country.
Okay. Atandi, before I come to
Trevor,
yeah.
The problem we have is that we have ignorant people commenting on important and very serious issues. You know, that's the really problem we have. In fact, when I saw the DP, Rigathi Gachagua, claim that they found empty coffers, you know, that is laughable. And my Senator Cherargei here, in fact, I urged him to go for some business classes, you know. Lawyers need to be taught some business
law.
Because, listen, first of all, the way our budget is conceptualized, there's no reason, or there's no way there's some money lying somewhere, kept somewhere, waiting to be spent. The way the budget is conceptualized is such that there's revenue side and there's expenditure side. The revenue side, we anticipate to collect revenue But again, there's also the fiscal deficit aspect where we expect to borrow. Now, when you have a budget where to meet that budget, you need to borrow and you need to raise revenue. Now, how do you say that that the previous government should have kept for you some money in the coffers so that when you take over, you can't find billions in the coffers? So, first of all, that is one of the things that I need to rectify. And secondly, the president is talking about debt relief. I want to agree with Honorable Undo that you cannot talk about debt relief and also attract investments, foreign investments. When you go for debt relief, then you put down the equations of attracting foreign investments because there's no investor who come to a country that is asking for debt relief, because that means that country is downgrading itself, and it's a country that is not conducive for investment. A country that is calling for debt relief means that there's a country that is being mismanaged. And there's no investor who wants to come to a country that is being mismanaged. So this is really where I want to fault the president, that let him pursue one thing, let him pursue foreign investments. Now, on the question of debt is a problem of expenditure. If you don't spend, you don't borrow. And if you look at the Jubilee regime, the reason why we're having this debt problem is because of SGR. SGR is the project that has gobbled about almost $1 trillion of foreign debt from China. And this is now, we are now having a situation where the new government doesn't know how to manage SGR. Because the reason why goods were being cleared in Naivasha is because we wanted to fund SGR. And this is a debt issue. Now, when you decide to transfer back the clearing of goods to Mombasa, you have actually killed SGR. You are killing SGR, you are killing public debt. You're talking about $1 trillion of public debt, which you don't know how you're going to fund and to service. Because the resources that were being generated from Naivasha are supposed to fund to pay back the SGR. So we are talking about a government that clearly does not understand what is going on. If you want, you cannot stop collection of revenue in Naivasha and then go to UN and ask for debt relief. I think the president needs to be advised. He needs to get serious people around him. My friend Cherargai and Murkomen, you are not economists. So please don't advise the president. Let the president get more other people to advise him. The problem we have in Kenya, we are still okay. And we don't need debt relief. All we need to do is we need to have a serious government that can reorganize its expenditure. Yeah. And stop spending money everywhere. Okay. I want to fault President Uhuru. President Uhuru decided to spend money in all projects without planning. And that is the reason why we keep on borrowing. That's why we are actually hitting. Right now, we are actually above debt ceiling. Okay. And this is because we have some of the expenditures that are not planned. They were not actually, when we passed the budget in Parliament, some of the expenditures you see being implemented, programs, were not in the budget. Okay. And then later on, the Article 223, where you spend and then you regularize in the budget, comes in. So I think once we have a disciplined government that focuses on implementing programs that are in the budget, then the question of debt will not arise. Even then, you are still in the opposition. Did you raise these concerns at that point? But they have tyranny of numbers. Government. They have tyranny of These Jubilee people have tyranny of numbers in the previous Parliament. But they were together in handshake. And I can show you some of the issues I raised on the floor of the House and outside the floor of the House concerning this Article 223, which has been abused by Jubilee regime since 2013. They've been abusing this article, spending money, which is not in the budget, and then they come back to Parliament to regularize because they have the numbers in Parliament. So I think this is something that they cannot run away. But during the handshake between 2017 and 2022? It needs to be made clear that we have never been in government. We have never been in government. We were not in government. Raila Amolo Odinga has never held any position in government. Deputy President William Ruto, who is now the president, has been in that office for years. He never resigned. Okay. Yeah, so I think this question of somebody claiming that, we found empty coffers when we were campaigning, we did not know what was there. That is false. And I think Kenyans need to know that these people, they're being cheated on, and they must resist. All right. Governor Matangi, we cannot downplay the effects of COVID-19 on our ability to pay debt, right? So does the president have a point when he's calling for a debt relief?
Well, let me first just say to my brother, stand here, the claim that
that you're in government, I think the question is, how are you in government?
Correct.
Not whether you're in government. You could be in government in many ways.
Which office did
you know? You could be in government by association, could be in government by, agreement, coalition, and you could also be in government by agreement. So it is not false to say that you had latitude in government. But however, speaking to the main issue, Trevor, I think there are a few things we need to say, just on behalf of the Kenyan people who are following, so that they get to understand. You know, once you hear some of these statements, Kenyans can get confused and get the wrong impression that either, as Atandi says, that everybody then does not know what they're talking about, and people know what they're talking about. First thing, I think you may want to ask yourself, when the president talks about debt, and my brothers here are asking, we are talking about historical debts. You know, the history of Kenya did not start in 2013. Neither did our historical debts start from that time. Our association with the lending community of all those fellows out there, from the World Bank and so on, didn't start in 2013. It's been there for a long, long time. If you look at the progression of our debt, it is true to say that between 2013 and 2020 up to 21, the spike was very high. Because of the amount of borrowing that we did. The question then would follow is there anything visible that is different, that those debts were applied to, that you can see? And it is also true that you can see quite a number of projects where some of those debts went. The question then further that will follow that is, are those projects paying back such that you're able to sustain that debt? And then the answer is no. And you then ask yourself, out of that, no, why isn't that happening? Because that was the original intention. And you find that the problem we have is most of the projects that were consummated then and got into rolling, finally have not reached a point whereby they are able to pay back into the economy. The effect of those projects haven't. And I think that's where Atandi brings in this discussion about the SGR, which I would beg to differ, my friend, with respect. I've been the chairman of transport in Parliament for 5 years. And this is a matter that we dealt with extensively. I would be saying this just to help those that may want to benefit from what really is happening, especially the people of Mombasa, our transporters, the operators of SGR. You know, you don't win by creating a monopoly in a free economy. You don't. And the best way that they would have approached this is to allow fair market forces to play. And for example, you have a port that has been built. Money has been invested in that port in the first place. You have a community around that port that has an economy that stretches all the way along up to Nairobi and even to where Atandi comes from the truckers to so on. And you are not also going to abolish the means of transport that is called trucking. You are saying that you want to support SGR to pay itself, but with the left hand, you are also strangulating all the other small economies on the trunk of that transport trail up to where Atandi lives. And the best way to approach this would have been to tell the SGR, yes, and by the way, I agree that if you build a port outside Mombasa, like the way they did in Naivasha, and attract lower costs for people, let's say, like our users in Burundi, Uganda, and so other, in those other places, so that they don't have to go to Mombasa. It is okay to do so, but make it competitive. And it makes sense that somebody who's coming from Kampala would want to pick his container from Naivasha. They'll save money. But you don't do so by going to Mombasa, where that starts, and telling everybody that then you must transport using this one system. You let it open it, make SGR competitive, and if a trucker is charging 100,000 to bring a container, charge 95, And then the trucker will adjust it. And that is how the market forces play. So you find that the mistake that was made by government was to go and issue decrees and orders and instructions that must be followed. That when a container leaves the ship, it is sent direct into a wagon, ferried direct to Mombasa. Indeed, there were so many people who were complaining that you find you live in Mombasa, you live in Mtituandei, you have a container, and then what's going to happen is going to be transported to ICD Nairobi. Then when you're living in Mombasa, you come to Nairobi to clear your container and take it backwards. You know, that wouldn't work. We did not pronounce ourselves on the fate of what are you going to do with all those fellows who are Kenyans and their taxpayers who have trucks that are parked there in the thousands, and the petrol stations on the roadside from Mombasa to Kisumu, who depend on those truckers, and all the guys employed, and all the small kiosks of women who sell mangoes and what have you and tea on the road that depend on those trucks. That is what the economy is about. And so what we should have done is come up with a proper framework that would allow everybody to live within that economy. So the SGR was not a bad concept. The other thing that I think that must be said is that it was overpriced. That you cannot not run away from. And so if the pricing was correct as it is, then I believe it should have been a viable project.
Was it? Let me speaking as a chairman. Let him finish on the infrastructure.
And you know, if we went there, I think you have heard. I don't know whether you listened to your boss on many occasions when he has even owned himself as actually part of the people who first went even to negotiate that particular SGR. So I would just want to advise you, don't defend people whom you cannot, don't be overzealous to defend people on account of maybe things you don't know. But what we are saying is this, that indeed it is a fact that the SGR was overpriced. The question would be by how much? Because, of course, there were factors about it that would have made the cost different. Our comparison, when we used to compare our SGR with the Ethiopian one, we may not have necessarily been correct, but there are fundamental differences, of course, for that matter. Let me make my last point. I want to have heard you. And when I was referring to induction, I was not referring to induction in the House, because I know you are a second-term member. I was referring to induction to the region of Atandi. Because
so there's a lot of feedback coming through,
anyway, no, I just wanted, I wanted to know that I know he's a second-term member of Parliament. But earlier on, he was not. He had not been baptized by Atandi into
let's bring up some of the feedback.
Into this new religion.
Let's bring up the feedback.
But Trevor, an important thing, the point I didn't mention was on what the president was talking about then about debt relief. I think I started the other way around. Because, let it be known by my colleagues here, when you found that the negotiations about Brexit, you remember when it took long, it was overextended, and those were European countries haggling. One of the key issues that was in contention was how their debt was going to be split, because they owed so much to the EU and others, such that they were asking themselves who is going to carry the debt burden. Let it be known even by Kenyans watching that when you find the U.S. government and U.S. officials coming to us, talking to us here about debt and management, the United States government is one of the most heavily indebted. They worry day and night about the debt they owe to China, and other countries. Everybody in this world, every country has a debt burden. So let's not treat a discussion about the Kenyan debt burden as though it is something that is illegal or should not be there, or is something that's illegal, that's out of the norm. The issues that the president was talking about are real. That indeed, talking to your debtor face to face, because that's where he was, and you're telling them it is true that even some of those European countries got relief on account of the effects of COVID-19.
Okay.
And that's what he's saying. He talked about conflict areas. We know, talking within a global perspective of East Africa and East and Central Africa, we have a problem with conflict. And I believe that's what he was addressing, which would also make us beneficiaries because we were victims of the COVID-19.
All right. There's a lot of feedback coming through, and you have just about 15 minutes to wind up on this conversation. Let's bring them up and see if we can read as many as possible. It's a state of the nation. Atandi, I'll come to you right after this. So Bob Otieno Wino says the interdiction of IBC Kenya Deputy CEO Ruth Kulundu is a welcome move. As Kenyans, we want to know the truth of the matter, which led to the misconduct of the 4 commissioners. Okay. Engineer Lazaro says, Honorable Cherargei, please take this message to the president. It's now time for practical implementations of his campaign pledges. Kenyans aren't interested in smart PRs, blame games anymore. We are all aware past regime was Ruto joint ticket. Okay. Edwin says, that's Wanaina, says only about 40% of Kenyans are farmers, according to USAID. The fertilizer subsidy, if it works, will only help out only a smaller subset of Kenyans, mostly rural population. Okay.
But they supply food to
He continued to say fuel prices are a global market. Lowering the cost of fertilizer will not bring the price down. Neither will it put more money on the pockets of the 60% who are not farmers. It's a long shot whose outcome is built on theories, hope, and despair. Okay. Wycliffe says Honorable Mudenyo is making false allegations on national television telling us that we are excited is not true. Let Azimio relax. Things are being fixed. Kenyans are happy the way government is being organized. Okay. Sir Rawlings says nothing is more meaningful to Kenya and Kenyans than a peaceful election. You can't gauge an election based on jubilation, as Oundo puts it. Kenyans have many things to do. We've entrusted institutions, IBC to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. Supreme Court upheld. Okay. Kinywa Mushoki says Kenya Kwanza government is now sufficiently concerned about winning 2027 elections. Azimio should be sufficiently concerned about policy. The presence of Azimio as an opposition party may induce a biased government to adjust its policies. Barsite says the Azimio MPs, Honorable Undo and Atandi, should be sincere enough about the subsidy program. Unga prices were still highest during the fuel subsidy period. How will they explain that? Okay. Sawe says Cherargei lied that they found 93 million. Where did the 200 million for assumption of office come from? President is overseas. Where did we get the money? The government is running. Kenya Kwanza must understand that they are now the government. Act like one.
Correct.
All right then. Babu Michael says, why is the current regime fighting so hard to bring back CAS's positions, knowing that the court declared the same illegal and unconstitutional? And the President, William Ruto, says they will fully abide by the law. The economy is bleeding. All right? Cherargei, I'll start with you. There's a lot of feedback there on several issues. If you say that there was only 93 shillings, 93 million shillings, where did the 200 million come from for inauguration?
One, there are 3 arms of government. Number 1. Number 2, we are acting like government because we are the majority party in both Senate and National Assembly.
Which in itself is a bone of contention.
It's not a bone of contention. Clever. When you look at, they will have their time to respond. Yeah. When you look at the standing orders and the law, when they amended the law, Section 3 on political parties amendment last year, the law, they amended to create what we call coalition political party, to mean a political party. In the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya, National Assembly and the Senate, there is no Azimio, One Kenya Alliance, even a single member of Parliament. They are only ODM, Wiper, and the rest. Just like Kenya Kwanza, they are only UDA, ANC. So Kenya Kwanza and One Kenya Azimio were those ones that were being discussed in public fora. But when you go to the National Assembly and the Senate, there are no Azimio member of Parliament or Kenya Kwanza. So even for Senator Moses Wetangula, the current speaker, he should just write 2 lines and declare Kenya Kwanza, which is majority UDA, to be the majority political party. Because even when you'll be allocating finally on that issue, if you see how the political party fund will be allocated, it will be allocated in the order of members of parliament of that political party, which means UDA will lead, then followed by ODM. So that's a simple issue that Senator Moses Wetangula, the Speaker of National Assembly, just needs to write a simple statement, and my brothers are minority side both in the houses. Secondly, on the issue, in fact, what I said is correct. The Deputy President confirmed in an interview in one of your media houses. And then secondly, even the Central Bank of Governor that we find, you know, when you talk about that was there, you know, they use what a KRA collects and we pay for salaries, for what have you, and for the government to run. But what was left is after Atandi and his colleagues and their chief campaign manager, President Uhuru Kenyatta, was spending 4 million. So we got 93 million. That was left in savings. But of course, there are money that is collected by KRA. So I want to confirm to the nation that truly we found 93 million, 93.37 million. I had my colleagues that those ones should be given to help or any other. But I think we need to work hard to improve on how we collect. On the issue of other issues that we have raised here in terms of cost of living, in terms of fertilizer subsidy, I represent farmers. Nandi County is largely a farming. I think also Aunda and Atandi, most of us here, even Kiambu, we represent farmers.
Yeah.
But the issue is when you say 40% are given fertilizers, it is the same 40% that proceed food that is being sold in Nairobi, that is being sold in Kisumu. Personally, the milk that we milk in Nandi, we sell it in Kisumu City. Even in Kiambu here, the vegetables and everything is brought. So the issue is we have subsidized and quality inputs and fertilizers. The food, the cost that is driving inflation, and even the cost of living is the food.
Yeah.
In fact, my brother Tandi has been complaining about the high cost of unga. And they are not telling the nation that it was even higher before we took over as a government. But I want to assure these are some of the things that the government, it is a long shot, I agree, but can we use painkiller, which is Panadol for now, and just to treat the pain, or we must ensure that we treat it properly. Okay. And the issue is, one was removing the fuel subsidy. Yeah. Two is ensuring that there is a subsidized fertilizer inputs and quality seeds so that we have enough food. The cost of living will come down because most of the families, Trevor, is that their biggest budget is on food. Yeah. And when food is cheap, it becomes easy. So I want to assure the country that all is well. It is 9 days. Please keep praying for us, and also let's keep hope alive. All right.
Mudenyo, your side is going to hold a crisis talk. In fact, they're saying Raila is calling ODM for a crisis meeting on this leadership issue. Who is majority?
As the Senate has put it, Speaker Wetangula has got a moment with history. He will either rewrite the law in so far as coalition parties and coalition arrangements are concerned. He will rewrite the law as far as what happens to an agreement duly entered into by people who are authorized to do so. So it's not just a walk in the park. Yeah. It's a very, very serious matter, and that will set the stage for democracy. Any decision he makes will have far-reaching ramifications. I've stopped saying nowadays that the law is clear. Because many times you have said the law is clear, I've come to believe that there are as many interpretations of the law as there are advocates, there are lawyers, and there are magistrates and judges. But the truth of the matter, be told, is that Azimio One Kenya Alliance has got the majority members of parliament. That's a fact. Those who were gazetted by IBC, when they did the gazettement, they are the majority. Of course, they will buy, those who switch camps here and there, but does not mean, even if you moved places, even if you went away with your mother to go and your mother got married to somebody else, you do not change your birth certificate. It remains you are a son of Cherargei, and that remains a biological fact, a historical fact. So wherever you go, if Cherargei starts in the county his number of children, you are among his children. That's the fact of the matter. We are the majority, they are the minority in the National Assembly. Any other arrangement will be to rewrite the law and upset the architecture of the Constitution. Yeah. So as we are waiting to take our position, when Parliament resumes on 29th, next week when there's a joint sitting of Parliament, we will take our position. Any other act will deal with it both by law politically and any other matter.
Okay.
ODM holds meeting regularly as part of housekeeping as we prepare. It's not a crisis meeting as such. When your father calls his children, it's not a crisis. Why? To discuss and agree. We are not part, ODM and Azimio Kenya, it's not the party that's forming the government. That's a fact. So therefore, there are those watchdog committees that must, by law, be headed by ODM and Azimio One Kenya Alliance. Okay. So those are housekeeping matters we are going to do. That's typical. And in any case, whoever takes any position in Azimio One Kenya Alliance is a reserve of the principals. They're the ones who decide. Yeah. They decide so, looking at the wider picture, what is at stake in the future. Okay. But we want to assure you, collectively, the National Assembly, under Article 95, all members of the National Assembly have a collective responsibility to check and put the government in an executive on checks and balances. All right. It is not a responsibility of any one party. It's a collective responsibility of each member of parliament. But we have seen from 2013, tyrant of numbers, members from Jubilee, and I can see the trend which is going to happen in Kenya Kwanza. They are being herded like goats to vote in a certain line without even thinking. Okay. It's such a shame somebody has gone to school, he surrenders your conscience, you just come and vote like a voting machine. All right. We want to urge them. Cherargei, tell them, please go and exercise your independent mind and vote for people of Kenya. Okay. Just like we are going to do.
All right. Governor Wamatangi, I'll keep you away from the wrangles of who has majority and who doesn't, because for you, you run an entire county government and you have your own issues there. What are the most perplexing things you found in Kiambu when you went in there? And how are you intending to address them?
Well, addressing that, I think it's also important to just point out, because I came from that house, and we campaigned together with this gentleman as I did my governor bid. And I think one of the areas where the Azimio One Kenya Alliance group will have to blame itself in hindsight is when it came to the time to put up a team. In my view, I think they hurriedly just ran around and herded people together without a proper framework of how, or rather without the intention to go the whole hog and see beyond just putting people together. And let me say so with due consideration. I think what happened at that moment was that there was a lot of haste to grab everyone who was nearby and drain the swamp before William Ruto would be able to get anyone to put in his. So they really went on a spree to induce and seduce and whatever, anyone who was nearby, without remembering that in the course of doing that, you also need to have a very well knit fabric that requires a legal firmness. And I think this is why they lost it, because you remember even before the elections, most of the people they had put in together there, like in Alfred Mutua, they took off. And others, and those agreements they're talking about, my brother here, they were already purged and trashed at that particular time before even now when counting who is majority. So that tells you that they didn't do a good job of farming up their coalition, and I think the real reason is that they did not intend it that way for that matter. That was not what was on their minds when they put people together. What they were just trying to do was to remove everyone from the reach of UDA then, because UDA was building a coalition just immediately, and they forgot that the future would mean now what is happening today. But otherwise, they're also going to have a very hard time going strictly by what the law requires to prove that they have a majority. I would want to urge them that the confrontation, in my view, about those positions is unnecessary. They would be of more value to this country if they went and firmly sat on the side of the opposition and occupied those correctly identified watchdog committees, as you have said, Mheshimiwa. That's where now they belong. Occupy the watchdog committees of public accounts, PIC, and put the government into check and proudly call yourselves opposition. You know, and then that way we are going to have the democracy that we envisage.
Yeah.
It is no lesser role, by the way. It's only that we misconceive it. It's no lesser role. You're putting the government on check to make sure that service delivery is at its peak, that money and resources are going to be deployed properly, that people are going to live true to what they said. That is the role. And this is what Kenyans want to see. Why do you want to demean it? Go do it with pride. You know, at the end of the day, 5 years is just a tweak like this. And then go back and say, this is what we did. For us, in government, it is even better that way because it will keep us on our toes. Yeah. You also make sure that what you have said, you live by it. And that's what democracy was intended to achieve. So, gentlemen, let's forget this bit about shading. Now, lastly, on what you asked me, what I found wonders. I found marvels in the county government. When you saw my colleague Simba Ratio in the news talking about finding 100 drivers for 200 vehicles. I had done mine like about 2 days before. And I found, like, I called in all my fleet, everyone, let me see, every driver, who you find that, like in my county, I have about 310 drivers. And when we did a rough check, you found, like, I have about 160 mobile vehicles and probably equipment about another 30, about 190 over, more than 300 drivers. You'll find that in most of the sectors, you have an amorphous wage bill. You have a system that doesn't run. You heard me saying during my inauguration that our pending bills run over 7.2 billion right now.
Billion?
Yes, our pending bills, yeah. 7.2 billion. We have a wage bill of more than 7 billion. And our allocation is just about 13.5 billion. So you find that the kind of things that are there are things that are amazing. What I think with the short experience that I have right now in that position, and I believe we are going to make it better, is that we have had individuals sitting in those positions not intending to leave farm systems that can be inherited by others to build on and have a better improving society and economy. What people have been doing when they sit in those positions, Trevor, I can say from what I've observed, is somebody sits there and you calculate your time from day 1 to the 5th year, and you want to think out how fastest and how quickest can you get the most and take off, if you are to leave. And then close to the time of departure, then you see, is it possible to use part of what you have collected to stir the waters and blow enough dust and confuse enough people to get re-elected again and run another 5 years. So if you do 10, you are likely to have worked with a bigger bundle. That's largely when you look at some of the systems there in place. That's what it tells you. The commitment to service. Treating people down there as the customers of the county, yeah. And knowing that you need to build deeply founded systems that are going to run your county government and make devolution a true reality and pride. Yeah. I think that escaped most of our county governments. So we are really having to do quite a bit of reset. If you look at how our people are employed, you find it is a sham. Because you have a few people there, you find that the county government is in arrears to pay its casual workers for more than 7 months. Yeah. In some cases, you find people. I recently had, I received a message from the unions in Kiambu. Yeah. Come and negotiate with us. We are just about to call a strike. They
have not been paid.
No, they have not been paid. Of course, we've made good of that now. We've paid. Yeah. And put a few things. What I'm saying, in short, is that. One needs to sit and put in proper systems, work consistently, and be committed. Okay. Within the first 1 year, the second year, I'm positive that we'll have been able to clean up the mess, put in proper systems that people now can depend on and come and run on, and the county can be a self-sufficient or you know, a self-sustaining entity that can run.
You know how many ghost workers you have?
Well, I'm in the course of doing that right now, but I can tell you for sure from what I look at, it is likely that the wage bill for the county that I run is about 600 million a month. So from my estimation, probably we are losing close to 150 million a month.
Okay.
Yeah. So that in my estimation would be going to the wrong hands.
All right.
So we have a lot of work to do cleaning up,
all right,
and then reinvest that money to build a better Kiambu.
All right.
And we are optimistic. The people are positive, and I want to assure the residents of Kiambu that we are out to do a good job.
All right.
We'll make sure that that our people are served well. Allow me a personal privilege just to say to the people, because I know most of the people in Kiambu watch, that part of what I would want to urge, and this is across the whole country. Remember when Kibaki became president, he taught us a very important mantra. He said, kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. Now this is something I would want to urge our people around the entire country, in every county, that it is unfair. For example, if you are a developer, and you come and you find that you have an enterprise, you want to come and invest and subdivide plots and build an investment worth over 2 billion. And then you come and look for a county worker and bribe him with 1 million so that you can forego to pay other dues to the county amounting maybe to 10 or 20 million. Once you build your houses, people will buy them. House helps will occupy. They'll come with their children. When they go to the ECD, it will have no facilities. They'll go to the market. It has no lights. It is not built. They'll go to the hospital. There are no medicines. And yet you started the whole of this thing. And that is how people build a bad community. What I want to urge to all our people, and with the assurance that not a single penny will be lost to theft or corruption.
All right.
But pay your dues, and then we invest it well and give you good services.
All right. Finally, Atandi.
Thank you, Trevor. Let me say that 90% of commentators, you read the views, they are positive towards us. I think they agree with us.
But they didn't give them votes.
Submissions in this forum that we are.
Gerard Gay is saying that, but they didn't give you votes.
No. That's under the belt. But you read the submissions. They agree with our submissions here. Which is commendable. I think that shows that the government arm here, you need to go back and reflect whether you are on the right track or not. But Trevor, there's this, the nation is talking about crisis meeting by ODM leader. Trevor, you know, ODM is the largest party, also the oldest party now in this country. We have been around for just under 20 years. 20 or, around 20 years. And we hold, ODM party holds regular meetings, regular consultations. Trevor, can you imagine that the Kenya Kwanza team went to Naivasha for a parliamentary group meeting, and the leadership that they presented to us, a list was read to the members. So and so you'll be the majority leader, minority leader, like that. On our side, Trevor, we act differently. Most of the people, the people you saw their names as going to be our leadership in parliament, they came to us and made submissions. The candidates came to us and they said, I want to be your majority leader. This is what I'm going to lead. And all the leaders made submissions to us, and then we said that because this is a coalition involving many partners, we have approved the following people. We submit your names to the coalition leadership so that they select for us who is the majority, who is the whip, and etc. That is how democratic ODM parties. And now we have realized that these Kenya Kwanza people conned Kenyans. You know, they promised Kenyans things they did not believe in, and they are not going to implement. So we are going to have more consultations as ODM and as Azimio to ensure that because we know this government will collapse in a few days to come, so that we are ready to take over government from them, because they will not do it. They will just make false promises, and in a few months the country will grind to a halt. So we are going to have many meetings, my brothers, and don't be anxious when we have meetings. Don't panic, because
I think
it's good for Kenya. Secondly, Trevor, on the question,
very briefly, I'm running out of time.
But you know,
majority or
parliamentary group.
The speaker Senator Wetangula has no role in determining this matter, because the standing orders are very clear. The clerk of the National Assembly has already written to the registrar of political parties about which coalitions were submitted, and she has already sent that communication to Parliament that there were 2 coalitions. There was Azimio, Oka, and there was Kenya Kwanza. And the details have been sent to us. We do not expect the Senator Wetangula to say anything because he has no role.
Okay.
In any case, is an appendage of the ruling Kenya Kwanza. So he cannot be the one purporting to be telling us that you are minority, you are majority. He has no role, and that thing is very clear. So the fact is, and this is a fact, that the people who got votes, who are in Azimio, the UDM, those ones who are claiming that they have exited, they got those votes because they were associating with Raila Amolo Odinga. That's why their voters elected them. Okay. They cannot be elected and then they exit the following morning. No, that's not acceptable.
All right.
If they are to exit, they must go back they must go back to the voters for election, because voters did not want William Ruto. That's why they gave them the support, because they were switching.
All right, gentlemen.
He said something about Naivasha. I must answer that.
Is that the last submission?
Yes.
Lastly, I would like to say that we are in a new dispensation, and this is something we are aware of. We are going to play our role in Parliament because we are not in the executive. So our work is very clear. We are going to sit in the oversight committees of Parliament.
Okay.
We are not disputing that. But at the same time, Parliament is an arm of government, and Parliament is not executive. Any MP who is in Parliament must know that their work is to legislate, to oversight, and to represent the people.
Okay.
There's nowhere in the law that says that I'm a parliamentarian who is affiliated, who is government, who is executive. So our work, we will chair committees as Azimio because we have the numbers, and those committees are going to chair them as per the Constitution, as per the law.
Gentlemen, we have to leave it. They have really run out of time.
He said something about
Matangi, Kiambu Governor, Honorable Samuel Atandi, Lego Songa, Member of Parliament, Samson Cherargei, Senator for Nandi, and Mudejo, Member of Parliament for Funyula. Senator, I'm sure we'll talk about this again next week on State of the Nation. We have to leave it there now.
You didn't attend a meeting in Naivasha.
Coming up next. See you soon.